See just a few cars, while there is a lot more car traffic going on in the city centers and on the highways. Most of the number plates are starting with an E because so much electricity is used, as more than 90% are provided by hydropower. And non-electrical vehicle is often marked with an S in Bergen, which doesn't tell you exactly that, like a B would tell you that it is Bergen, and with an S you have to know. And all those green number plate driving cars around are those that are cars of companies, small businesses, and often maintaining workers. Instead of a registry letter or two letters and the number, also you can sometimes see number plates that have an entire word written instead of a registry number. And that does me personal tell that the owner didn't know what else to do with all the kroners he or she has. As mentioned, the sea has opened now, and we see again the island called Askøy in Norwegian. And as we are incredibly lucky with the weather, we don't only see that island itself, which sometimes isn't even possible with all the rain and clouds, but also we can see another island connected with a bridge, and that is called Sutra. You also, if you have in sharp enough eyes, you are even able to tell there are two towers on the other island. It isn't only us who are enjoying there was also a queen called Maud who was married to the first king of Norway, or at least the kingdom that has been for the last century the kingdom of Norway. Haakon the Seventh was Bergen Museum one more time, and it is possible to get to that museum by a very little ferry which only rooms for about 10 people at a time. It drives directly from the city center and comes all the way here. And the old Bergen Museum is a fictional city center and developed at a time when a lot of other museums, as open-air museums, developed, and they always wanted to show the rural life, while here it was that people wanted to show what the city life was like. So in the old Bergen Museum they only don't have those rebuilt houses, but also they take you back in time with what they call intangible cultural heritage. So there are actors dressing the way they did a couple of centuries ago and also speak in an old-fashioned manner and tell you that 10 miles per hour is an incredible fast speed, for example. In a typical neighborhood like that, I can't recommend to tell you visitors that you live in a White House. In that case, it might take quite some time until your visitors arrive. As everything was wooden built, there are a lot of city fires that have influenced the city, and in each part of the city there is a fire station in a red color called Red, like an area in Sweden where there was a copper mine and a lot of iron oxide came by as a byproduct. Also in a red color now to the right, we get reminded of those tough times we went through when we had to walk all the way to a phone booth and couldn't make comfortably phone calls from our couches instead. Nowadays those former phone booths are turned into libraries, and they tell you give a book and take a book, and by that the library is all the way exchanging. You have been arriving with what we see now at the right hand side this morning, and as we tend to understate things just slightly here in Norway, it is what we call a boat. And you see the second fortress, which we've got a place to water yourselves from the inside with alcoholic beverages that are sold at low prices in brown bottles, and that is the case when we call it brown bars. And as the beverages are offered at such a low price, the alcoholic intake might be that high that it distracts from the shabby interior, which the owner cannot afford to improve as he is offering those low prices. The St. Mary's Church to our right hand side is the oldest church of the entire city and also the oldest stone built building. But that is only the ground wall, while not of other features were added at later time, because stone was that valuable that recycling is not as new as we like to think, but was already done in the Middle Ages. So that is the front of the UNESCO, the back of the UNESCO Heritage Site, and the wooden buildings we've just passed is a museum called Skjøtstuen. Skjøtstuen does nothing have to do with shoot, but it was the assembly houses of the merchants who resided in the wooden area that we see now at the right hand side. There are hardly any chimneys, and that is because those merchants who lived here didn't allow any fire or light, which was called the Hanseatic Wharf. And the Hanseatic League was the name of the association of those mostly northern German merchants who seized the entire North Sea trade for around 500 years during 1350 and 1760. After we have been passing the school that we see to the left-hand side in the yellow color, we will see the funicular station, and if you would like to take a funicular ride later, you have a short walk from either where you are along the water or even the ship down to the water, and when you are at the bottom of the street you come up here, and then you can take a 10 minutes funicular ride which takes you up to Mount Florian. There is many cafes, bars and restaurants, and to the left there will be seen a quite untraditional restaurant in quite a traditional facade. And the reason that the facade of McDonald's does look the way it does here to our left is that the facade is listed while the inside can be used as they like. The world famous fish market does not only happen in the tents that we now see to the right hand side, but also in the fish market hall. The glass building further on to the right is a place with 2 restaurants where the Bergen fish soup is offered. So when you're here at the fish market, after the glass building we don't only see the back of the Hanseatic Wharf that we've just passed, but also we see now the front of all those wooden houses. And it is in between that you don't only have those souvenir shops or all the souvenir shops, so to say, of the entire city, but also those famous alleys that you might have seen on photos or even TV. While a lot of tourists don't think it is too... The Hanseatic Wharf was the area where the Hanseatic League lived in, and Hanseatic League is a rather funny term because they were actually called the Hansa, which was a translation of the group, and League means more or less the same, so that powerful trading association might as well be called the group, and it was the other side of the bay where they did their trading, while all Norwegians and other nations were at this side of the bay. the opportunity to take a short walk to the water and to take pictures of that famous UNESCO icon, and also all everywhere in the peninsula. Nowadays are all primary schools offering a leisure activity program instead. I mentioned earlier there were 2 fortresses, but we will also see a third one, and this is the one we do see now at our right hand side, called Frederiksberg, and it will be followed by a very pretty hill and a cute group of the kindergarten visitors who have an excursion day every single week. The beautiful hill that we see now to the right hand side doesn't have an equally pretty history. It is called the Gallows Hill. And from the water coming, people knew what they needed to be afraid of if they didn't follow the law. And that was a time when executions still were a thing. They are not since 1905. In 1791, the king realized that executions with the sword are quite inhumane, as the sword wasn't always sharp enough to actually fulfill the execution, and sometimes it didn't succeed before the 3rd try. And then he said, this is way too inhumane, this needs to stop. From now on we only use the axe instead. Fortunately, it didn't take an entire century to realize that also this is inhumane, and as mentioned, the punishment system is made in a way that it is made from correctional facilities instead, which leads to the situation that in the Christmas time we cannot read in the newspaper only that schools and kindergartens are doing theirs to support the gingerbread society, but also the prisons also are baking gingerbread houses for that city. To the left-hand side we see a writer called Amalie Schramm, or Emily, and she was living in the area that we are about to pass, and the area is to this day called with a patriotic name, the National Stage. And in front of the theater we will see Henrik Ibsen, who is known for the plays he wrote, which are, for example, Hedda Gabler, Bergen, or The Doll's House. And also it was Bergen which has gotten the music from Edward Grieg. And we can tell by the statue that Henrik Ibsen probably was not the 23 he had when he was a director of the theater here. But he was wearing glasses already, so he might have lost some eyesight already at a high age when he was a model. The reason that the patriotic name for the National Stage is that the theater society which founded it was acting at a time when Danish was still the official language, and then they only allowed Norwegian speakers to both write and play the plays, and then they took turns with both playing and writing each, while some still thought that this is way too Danish and they wanted to have a writing based on all the dialects instead. It is nowadays called New Norwegian, and by those 90% who have the so-called book language, which derived from Danish as a main language, they only learn it as a sign language. And in the rural west of Sweden, of Norway, they write New Norwegian, and then learn the book language at late school years as a side language. In public documents or your ID, for example, both languages are written, and there's also a third one which is used up in the north by the Sami people. The only way which is taught on broadcasting like radio and television, and on Norwegian radio and television all the dialects are resembled. And the high technology center to our left and to our right hand side with the blue and silver color is the home of the IT studies and the last university building that we see. And the yellow building called Skipe translates to the ship. And Himmelfahrten will appear to the right hand side, the name of a man carrying a fish on his back, here as shown as a mosaic. And I'm afraid that the truck has messed the view up for us now to that man. There was a Scottish fish liver oil company who used the man called Himmelfahrten as a picture on all of their products, and when the company was demolished, a ship company in Bergen tried to get him home from Scotland, and they succeeded halfway at least. What they actually want to do is to get him back to the fish market where he was really working, and it was on his back. He carried the fish up in the wealthy areas among the Fløyen, and after Himmelfahrten has done his job, the Fløyen population got the funicular instead, and by that had a comfortable ride up in their wealthy area. South of the center, and also here we are able to tell that it doesn't matter where you live in the city, you always can hike in the nature or in the mountain top in one out of those 7 mountains which give the name the city. I mentioned in the start that it is a German translation of the word mountains, and it was those Hanseatic merchants who spoke Low German and influenced by that the language for more than 400 years. We have International Music Festival. The lower floors is a museum now, and the upper floor is where the royal family sleeps once a year. And to this day we have seen today we have seen a royal ship in the bay, and they are having 100 years jubilee and a concert at the royal residence, which is why we've just seen the police as well. The royal family is quite down to earth in comparison with other European royals. And when there is not a special occasion like today, there is no police, and everyone can go to that hill and also swim in the mountain, in the water behind that mountain. The reason for the royalty being quite down to earth in comparison with other European royalties might be the first king. I mentioned his wife earlier at the photo stop, and the king himself said he only wants to become the king of Norway after we left the union with Denmark and Sweden. And he said, only if I am elected I want to be a king, and it was more than 99% who elected him. And that was the grandpa of our recent king, who is called Harold. And the granddaughter of Harold, Princess Ingrid Alexandra, has recently done her duty in the military in combination with an educational program in a tank. And when she made her first state visit, Harold showed himself as funny as he usually is. He said that she chose Iceland to do her first state visit because she had such great memory from that country when she was there the first time at the age of 5 months. Not only down to earth as the royal family, Harold himself is quite busy, and he celebrated his 88th birthday last year, and despite being on a sick leave for 2 months, he also did about 200. And in this part of the city you're able to tell that also the bus can connect to that electricity, and when it's charged in the city center it disconnects and does the opposite in the other cable areas. First panoramic part, as well as the part of the city that we just drove through, does not have equally low real estate prices as those that we are in at this moment. And even if you don't know beforehand, by the look of the buildings, you are probably able still to tell yourself that this is a rather affordable area for many than the areas we've seen earlier. And there are a lot of so-called first establishers who take advantage of that. And first establishers we call often young people starting a family and buying their first home. And it is about 80% of the population who are homeowners, which is why those who are starting that process are called first establishers. And there are several reasons why there are so many homeowners. For those who have a low income and first establishers can take advantage of the low housing prices in this area. Also, those who work in nursing are unfortunately not among the highest paid ones, and they have a short way to the hospital, which we can drive underneath through instead of having to drive all around it, thanks to engineering, which is taught on colleges, as well as the nursing and teaching. Shuttle directly from the city center, but you're also able to tell that there is a bus station and the light rail is also going here. Earlier there was a man called Himmelfahrten who had work at the fish market by carrying fish on his back and climbing up the wealthy areas to deliver fish to the people who lived there. And those very wealthy areas are visible now to the right hand side, and up in the mountain you see the white restaurant on that funicular station platform top. We have earlier seen sailing boats and also leisure boats, and we are by that water again. And very far out to our right hand side they are about to make a beach with sand, but that process needed to start by cleaning the water. As where the sailing boats were, we have seen a very modern residential area which we will quite see again. And where there is now the modern residential area, there has been a lot of decay for heavy industry just a decade ago, and in the decades before that there was heavy industry in use which polluted the water, and now the water is about to be cleaned, and then the beach will be there as well and clean water to swim in. Also, the ship we've seen earlier, or Skipet in Norwegian, the yellow building is now office buildings and has formerly been a shipyard. And then you see those center, there is a green park, and that was called into life by a doctor who realized that when there was a lot of heavy industry, it was a good idea to have a park as a green lung with all the smoke, that you also have a nice place to breathe. But also it has the third largest Munch exhibition, and Edvard Munch usually is known for his painting The Scream. But as we have only the third largest exhibition, we have, so to say, everything else but The Scream. That is the one where the green tower that we are passing at this moment. And as soon as we have made another turn, we will see the Celebration Plaza in the city park. Of the city park, the one who actually was living in the castle, which isn't one, is standing. Christian Michelsen, the first prime minister. It was his apartment that is now the royal residence, and he is standing in front of the new city hall, not built in brutalism, but what is called here in this country functionalism, while other languages also call it modernism. The old city hall is also visible now with the weapon shield of Bergen, not only at the bottom of the old city hall itself, but also if the flag in the middle was raising, you were able to see the weapon shield. The modern shopping opportunities are, while all souvenirs or fish can be bought here in this area. And if we succeed, we are offering people to disembark the bus before we are arriving at the ship. So I'm driving Jan for driving this excellently for us today. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Else, I wish everyone a nice day here in the city center if they are able to leave already.
It's beautiful. I like this area.
We see a riot ship to our left-hand side, which is here because the castle, which isn't one, is celebrating 100 years of being a royal residence for the summer. And the former castle, the fortress area starts by the Rosencrantz Tower that we see now at the right-hand side, and it's followed by the Hawkins Hall. That is now the name of the former king's seat. When King Håkon Håkonsson let it built in 1261, it was just called the Stone Hall, and that was a time when stone was equally, or it was 10 times of the price of wood, so it did sound to the medieval population probably equally impressive as Golden Palace might sound to us. In 1349, the Black Plague had eradicated half of the population, and being in a bad shape, it was an advantage to be in a union with Denmark. And the Danish ruler got help from a lord called Erik Rosencrantz, who wasn't too humble, which is why he called the Rosencrantz Tower in his own name. And we see the fortress area one more and one last time. That's where we started, and luckily we live in peaceful times, so the area can be used for open air concerts. And then we take a turn back to your home, which is at least at this time. And I'm thanking Jan one more time for driving us this excellently today, and all of you for joining us. I hope you have a pleasant day here with this incredibly uncommon weather. I have to apologize that we are not offering the refreshing wine we usually offer on about 200 days.